What if I told you that after World War II, some of Hitler's top scientists weren't punished, but instead helped build NASA? That Nazi engineers designed the rockets that put the first Americans into space, and that some of these same scientists were obsessed with UFOs, lost civilizations, and ancient magic. This isn't a conspiracy. This is real history. Operation Paperclip was a secret US mission that brought over 1,600 Nazi scientists to America. These were the same people who built Hitler's advanced weapons, and some of them believed in supernatural forces, ancient gods, and even extraterrestrials. Today, we're diving deep into the bizarre occult world of the Nazis, their obsession with lost knowledge, and how these strange beliefs shaped history. Hitler's obsession with the occult began in his early life. After Germany's defeat in World War I, he was drawn to the radical ideas, including those rooted in mysticism and ancient myths. In the early 1920s, Hitler came in contact with the Thule Society, a secret group blending Aryan nationalism with occult practices. They believed in Atlantis, superhuman Aryan ancestors, and used symbols like the swastika, which was considered once a very peaceful symbol, and they used these magical symbols to help propagate their cause. These ideas gave Hitler something powerful, a mythic foundation for a new German identity. He wasn't just building a political party, he was crafting a religion. So according to Dr. Eric Kurlander in Hitler's Monsters book, these supernatural beliefs were not fringe. In fact, they actually shaped a lot of Nazi policy. The Nazi Party adopted the swastika and began referencing mystical ideas about racial purity and cosmic destiny. As Hitler rose to power, he embedded these beliefs into the heart of the Nazi state. His right-hand man, Heinrich Himmler, turned Wellisberg Castle into a ritual site for the SS. Himmler believed the SS were the modern-day heirs of ancient Aryan warriors and held ceremonies to awaken their ancestral powers. One chilling story comes from the Nazi expedition to Tibet in 1938. Himmler believed the Himalayas held the secrets to Aryan origins. The SS Anhabet Institute led the mission, sending anthropologists, zoologists, and even botanists into Tibet. They met with the Tibetan region and were given access to monasteries. They took thousands of photographs, measured skulls and noses of locals to find racial purity, and searched for ancient texts describing a lost Aryan civilization known as Shambhala. Some reports say they were also searching for entrances to underground cities rumored to house the divine knowledge. Soviet intelligence documents declassified after the war, particularly from the KGB files released in the early 1990s, suggest that the Nazis were intensely interested in Tibetan scrolls describing advanced spiritual techniques, remote viewing, which we'll talk about later, and methods of consciousness manipulation. These documents reference coded communications between SS officers describing experiments with mind expansion and non-local awareness. Further, some of these documents include those found in the Soviet archives and detailed in historian Nick Redfern's work, show that Nazi scientists believed that ancient Himalayan practice could hold the key to unlocking psychic potential. These included telepathy, astral projection, and induced states of altered consciousness believed to connect practitioners with higher intelligences. The expedition collected rare scrolls and relics believed to link the Aryan race to spiritual beings. According to some reports, monks revealed initiation rituals involved chanting and symbols eerily similar to those later found in Nazi occult ceremonies. This wasn't a scientific expedition. It was a metaphysical crusade, and many today never talk about. It was about reawakening what they believed was a dormant power embedded in the Aryan bloodline. Some Nazi officials believed Tibetans themselves were a degenerate remnant of this once pure race, while others saw them as keepers of ancient truths. Either way, what they uncovered fueled the belief that the psychic powers could be weaponized, and it directly influenced later programs, like in the United States, the most famous called Stargate. But Tibet wasn't their only destination. In the late 1930s and early 1940s, Nazi Germany launched several expeditions to the Arctic, particularly to a remote region known as Queen Maud Land in Antarctica. They named it Nushabamlan. Allegedly, the Nazis believed that Antarctica could hide entrances to an underground world, potentially linked to the lost city of Atlantis, or an ancient race of superior beings. Declassified British and American intelligence files reference unusual Nazi naval activity in the region. German U-boats were spotted traveling to and from Antarctica waters under classified orders. The Nazis even constructed a base, according to some declassified post-war testimony. Multiple German military journals and post-war confessions, particularly those revealed during Project Blue Book, debriefs described secret Arctic operations where advanced aircraft were tested and mysterious symbols were etched into the icy walls of the hidden base. The SS believed that these symbols came from an ancient language used by the so-called Nordic gods, who believed to have visited Earth millennia ago. One declassified US Navy document from Operation High Jump in 1946 references unexplained aerial phenomena encountered near the Antarctic coast. Flying crafts described as silver discs capable of vertical takeoff and extreme speed. Some researchers like Joseph Farrell and Henry Stevens claim these encounters point to a surviving Nazi flying saucer tech, allegedly. Whether myth or reality, the blend of science fiction and ancient mythos was central to Nazi ideology. They weren't just building war machines. They believed they were reviving lost technologies of a forgotten master race. So as we mentioned, decades later, the US launched its own secret psychic spy program, Project Stargate, inspired in part by Nazi experimentation and Soviet advances. Stargate was led by the Defense Intelligence Agency and supported by declassified CIA operations. As we go back to Hitler, he believed in magical relics. One of the most powerful was the Spear of Destiny, the lance that allegedly pierced Jesus on the cross. Legend said whoever possessed it would hold the fate of the world. When Hitler annexed Austria in 1938, he seized the spear from Vienna's Hofburg Museum. He believed it gave a supernatural edge. The story takes a darker turn when on April 30th in 1945, the very day Hitler unalived himself, the Allies took possession of the spear. Coincidence? Or did Hitler believe his destiny ended the moment the spear left his control? Another story involves the astrologer's prophecy. In 1939, a Swiss astrologer named Karl Ernst Kraft predicted Hitler would survive an assassination attempt in 1939. When Hitler actually did survive a bomb plot that year, he took it as proof of astrology's power. From then on, the Nazis employed astrologers to guide wartime decisions. Hitler delayed the invasion of Russia based on star charts, an error that forced the army to fight through a brutal winter, contributing to their defeat. So, did it really help? Doesn't seem like it. And then there's the strange case of Wellisberg Castle. Designed as the spiritual headquarters of the SS, the castle was remodeled with a crypt where SS officers performed candlelight rituals, blood ceremonies, and invocations of ancient Germanic gods. Some believe they attempted dark magical rites aimed at changing the course of the war. One SS officer's diary discovered after the war, he described these rituals intended to harness the energy from planetary alignments and blood sacrifice. Very disturbing details. The Nazis weren't just hunting relics, they were experimenting with futuristic technology as well. One of the most ambitious and mysterious projects was their flying saucer program, particularly the Hanabu series. These disc-shaped crafts were allegedly powered by an anti-gravity engine called the Thule Tachinator. Diagrams recovered after the war show complex engineering with propulsion systems unlike anything the Allies had seen. According to engineer George Klein, who worked with the Luftwaffe, the first successful test flight of a disc-shaped craft took place in 1945 in Prague. Klein reported seeing the Hanabu 2 hover silently and reach altitudes and speeds unimaginable at that time. Another account involves a craft called the Vril 1, said to be guided by a woman from the Vril Society who claimed to channel extraterrestrial knowledge through trance states and automatic writing. Then there's Die Glock, or the bell, first described in Polish, intelligence files, and later supported by eyewitness accounts. This device was reportedly tested in a facility known as Der Risi, the Giant, near the Czech border. It was shaped like a bell made of heavy metals and glowed with violet light when activated. Scientists working on the project reportedly suffered extreme radiation burns. and several died. Some claim it had the power to bend time and gravity. According to investigator Igor Witkowski, blueprints of D-Glocke were seized by the Allies, and the device itself may have been transported to the US under Operation Paperclip. These are alleged claims. These experiments were deeply tied to the Nazi belief that ancient knowledge, whether from Aryan ancestors or extraterrestrial contact, could give them a technological edge. They weren't just building weapons. They were trying to pierce the veil of reality. Decades later, the US launched its own secret psychic spy program, Project Stargate. Most likely inspired in part by Nazi experimentation and Soviet advances, Stargate was led by the Defense Intelligence Agency and supported by declassified CIA operations, as seen by this declassified CIA file right here. One of its most famous operatives was Joe McMoneagle, a former Army intelligence officer. Using remote viewing technique where someone sees distant targets using only their mind, McMoneagle successfully described secret Soviet submarine bases located down to aircraft and even detected missile silos inside North Korea. Joe McMoneagle appeared on the Sean Ryan Show many times, where he goes into detail about all these missions, where he reveals how military-grade psychic protocols were developed to access targets thousands of miles away. According to McMoneagle, the Stargate program had multiple verified successes, ranging from accurate descriptions of top-secret documents in locked rooms to identifying hostages. In his interviews, he describes how viewers were often able to receive mental imagery that could later be confirmed by traditional reconnaissance. This wasn't guesswork. It was a structured intelligence operation. Though Stargate was officially shut down in 1995, allegedly, its roots trace back to the same pursuit of psychic power that Nazi occultists believed in. Files from the CIA show repeated interest in topics like telekinesis, telepathy, and even contact with non-human intelligences. Some Stargate documents openly speculate about parallel dimensions, astral planes, and the role of consciousness in shaping reality. Hitler was raised Catholic, but he rejected Christianity. He called it a religion for the weak. He despised its teachings of compassion and humility, which he saw as contrary to the brutal struggle of life. He planned to replace it with a new Nazi religion centered on Germanic gods and Aryan superiority. While the Nazis made early deals with the Vatican, which is another story, to avoid resistance, Hitler privately mocked Christianity and captured SS documents. Plans were found to slowly erode church influence, removing crosses from schools, replacing Sunday worship with Nazi ceremonies, and even rewriting the Bible to glorify the Aryan race. Some reports claim that within the SS, occult rituals became increasingly extreme. Secret ceremonies at Wellisberg included candlelit oaths, blood symbolism, and invocations to ancient deities. Rumors circulate about demonic invocations, though solid evidence remains pretty scarce. What's clear is that the Nazis saw themselves not just in a political war, but a spiritual one that they were willing to go to the ends of earth to win. After the war, the world learned the horrifying scope of Nazi crimes, but it also uncovered the strange beliefs that guided them and mysteriously get left out of history textbooks. Declassified CIA documents later revealed that both US and Soviet intelligence were interested in occult practices and psychic experiments, partly because the Nazis had done it first. Programs like Project Stargate, where the CIA literally trained soldiers in remote viewing, psychic spying, were inspired by Nazi experimentation. The correlation is there. Though the Pentagon denied connections, some of the same scientists and doctors brought over in Operation Paperclip had been involved in these occult adjacent studies. Remote viewing was taken seriously enough to be tested for military intelligence gathering. Dr. Eric Kurlander reminds us in Hitler's Monsters book that these beliefs weren't harmless. They gave mythological justification to genocide. They convinced millions that they were fighting a holy war. When fantasy mixes with power, especially unchecked power, truth disappears and horrors follow. The Nazis weren't just fighting a war, they were trying to rewrite reality. Through rituals, relics, and rockets, they chased a dark vision of power rooted in myth and magic. And while the Reich collapsed, the echoes of their occult obsession still ripple through our world today. If you're into uncovering the truths you're never told before, hit the like button, smash the subscribe, and leave a comment. I'm Alessi, and together we'll keep chasing the truth they never wanted you to see.